Great. And so if everyone who is in here, I think everyone did, but if you can just mute yourself so that until the Q&A portion opens up so that we don't hear any miscellaneous noises in the background, that would be great. And like I said, I'm Patricia Groover. I'm running the SciDeal program at the National Science Policy Network. And we have a great science diplomacy career panel today. First, we have Dr. Erica Key, who is the U.S. Global Hub Director for Future Earth, an international constellation of researchers, innovators, and actors supporting transformation to sustainability. She brings to the role more than a decade of experience leading systems approaches to global change. We also have Dr. Rebecca Lashan, Executive Director of the Banbury Center, think tank style conference center at Cold Spring Harbor Laboratory. And she'll be speaking about her experience in science diplomacy. And she was also the former director of the East Coast for the UK Science and Innovation Network. And we'll also hear from Tazreen, who is the Innovation Officer with the Netherlands Innovation Network. She previously worked for Scottish Development International and also for the British Consulate-General in Boston as well. So I'm gonna add a few more people that just are joining us. And then I'll hand it over to Dr. Erica Key, and she will be presenting her career. And I made it so that you should be able to share your screen, Erica. Let me know if you have issues.
Thanks so much. Okay, welcome everyone. So I kept it to 2 slides because it's a very interesting adventure that I've been on. So I was a traditional scientist. I was an oceanographer, and I did try lots of types of oceanography, biological, geological, chemical, etc., before actually making the transition to physical oceanography, and actually sailed in all oceans around the world many times over more than a decade, learning all sorts of practical applications, being at sea, where you really had to fix your own problems because no one was coming to your rescue. And that really gave me a good underpinning for what was to come. And so if that's the old me, the current me is actually really devoting myself to the idea of, inclusive action towards achieving sustainability and resilience goals around the world. And as you can see from my background, I'm currently in Pretoria, South Africa at Future Africa for the Sustainability Research and Innovation Congress, which I created some years ago. And we're so happy to have thousands of people around the world coming together in action-forward discussions to really advance our progress towards sustainability and resilience. So how does one get from tying knots on a ship to this kind of activity? And it really came with a pivotal transformation, which was applying for work within a federal government situation to understand better how funding flowed from the government to science. And I did this as a program director at the National Science Foundation. And it was there that I was a program director for system science, which was fantastic, allowing us to thread together all of these different ways of knowing. And then in charge of the Arctic Observing Network, which was pan-Arctic, so working with other nations to agree upon priorities for science, and then find ways to mobilize both policy and resources to support that. So what triggered that change for me was working on ships that would come in close contact with different communities. So we were working offshore of the Seychelles for quite a while. When we came to shore, we held an information exchange at the library in Mahe, and it was standing room only. And I'm just going to stop this slide, but share with you that that was one of many transformative events, including engaging with Inuit peoples, the Greenlandic peoples, etc., where we were sailing in their territorial waters, and recognizing that the information we collected was incredibly important to them as communities that subsist on the marine environment. And how could we share what we learned with them? How could we get them more involved in the activity? And so that really encouraged me to connect more directly in the decision-making process and find inclusive ways of integrating communities, NGOs, other organizations into this process. So while at the National Science Foundation, I ended up funding a lot of projects in the North that were community-based monitoring, citizen science, again, working with other governments to find where we shared a vision, and drawing a big envelope around that to allow them to engage the way they would in their own culture, in their own design. And that actually propelled me into an executive director position at the Belmont Forum, which if you haven't engaged with, I highly recommend you to look at belmontforum.org, because it is the only global transdisciplinary transnational funding body that brings together more than 2,000 programs around the world to really support co-design, co-implementation with communities in activities ranging from food, water, energy nexus to migration and mobility, sustainable consumption, and beyond. So setting that up was an incredible process for me. I'm not an expert in all those fields, but what I can do is find ways to connect people in a way that they feel comfortable and they feel supported, to be able to put resources on the table that enable their people to collaborate in international transdisciplinary projects. So with that experience in mind, I've come to Future Earth now, and I'm now back on the side of connecting scientists with policy and bringing resources to the table to elevate the voices of underrepresented groups, to work with this global constellation of offices, to truly influence and inform major level policies like the Conference of Parties, the Biodiversity Forum, IPPES, and the Decade of the Oceans. So here we are, integrating knowledge, translating it for policymakers, and recognizing fully that science is just one of the many drivers in policy decisions. A lot of times there are other ultimatums, such as the policymaker wanting to stay in office. So being really creative with ways to elevate science in a way that syncs up with their own personal agenda as well as their constituency. So here we are in Africa today, and I'll just close by saying we're accomplishing a lot of good here. We are connecting people all over the globe and really looking for those areas of shared interest and bringing resources to bear on that to transform policy and practice, and to monitor effectively the impact of these transformations, so that we can demonstrate that to future generations, to funders, to policymakers, the efficacy of these kinds of collaborations. So thank you for letting me join with you today. And I'll turn it back to our organizer.
Thanks so much, Erica. That was really great to hear about your career pathway, and it's great to see you know, how you made the transition and why you made the transition as well. So thank you for those details. So next, I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Rebecca Lashan from the Banbury Center to talk about her career path.
Thank you, Patricia. I'm also going to try to share a couple of slides. So, okay, somebody shout if anything goes wrong or if you can't hear me. So I started out on a pretty traditional academic science career path. I did graduate school and then a postdoc. I was studying neuroendocrinology generally, brain control of body weight. And it really wasn't until probably the second year of my postdoc where I really started to think, hey, maybe I want to do something a little bit different. I was already on job, essentially on job searches, preparing applications for faculty positions. So it was really a very sharp left-hand turn, which was both scary because I hadn't prepared for it at all, but also scary because I then had to tell everyone. At that time, it was, you know, it was sort of you were a bad person if you were leaving academia to go anywhere else. But I had taken a course that was offered at Rockefeller on science diplomacy, initially just because I was looking for creative ways to write grants. But I sort of said, my God, this is for me. I love to talk to people about science, especially to non-scientists. And I think I could really bring some value there. So very late in the game, I tried to make that turn. I had a lot of applications rejected to foundations, to US government. So I spent about a year being rejected and revising my CV, which started out as just submitting my NIH bio sketch really naively to positions that really didn't know what to do with it. Finally got to the point where I talked to enough people and learned enough things that I was hired. And so I moved to work for the UK government, but I was based in the US, in Boston. So I started out as a senior officer for the Science and Innovation Network, based in Boston, and then worked my way up to be a regional director. What that involved, and I'm not sure how much Patricia has talked about it, having been a part of that network herself, but our role was really about connecting UK and US science, essentially for the benefit of the UK science infrastructure, but generally for the good of science. And so what did that mean? What was I doing there? So it was about thinking about policy issues, which was, you know, a lot less than I had expected it would be, but that came into play in a lot of the work we did. It was trying to get ahead of what was coming in policy. So what are the areas of science that are starting to emerge that are going to need some attention? It was also about trying to connect people where can you connect scientists or institutions or organizations to try to fill gaps on one side or the other. Some of it was outreach and just getting to know people, networking and learning about what they did, feeding that information back. And throughout all of that, it was about creating relationships with both scientists, with other policymakers, both in the US and the UK, trying to understand needs, trying to develop strategies. So, you know, how are we going to get this minister to care about this really niche science area that we know is really important, but it's going to take some convincing, and how can we make her or him think that that's what they need to put money into? And a lot of it was to do all of that work was putting together different events or campaigns, delegations, things like that. And I have to say, when I first got there, I really had really deep imposter syndrome for probably the first year. I thought, this is insane. What am I doing? I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be given this much responsibility. And then it wasn't until I realized that sort of everyone was kind of fumbling their way through that I got the confidence to really start to do the job well and to see that I enjoyed it. One of the things that was interesting was my entire science background had been in the biosciences, and specifically in physiology and molecular biology. But when I came to the Science and Innovation Network, the person I started working with initially, her background was in the biosciences. So she was really covering all of that. So I had to look for where was the need. And it just so happened to end up to be in cybersecurity, computer science, some national defense and defense tech. And so having zero background in any of that, you know, really able to use the technology that I owned and that I needed to work with, I just dove in. And it was really about just finding the people who were the experts and who were clever and building those connections, listening to them, and trying to find out where I could help fill needs or create connections that could fill needs. And so here are a few examples of the work that I'm proud that I was able to work on. One thing I think that I found out pretty quickly was that you're not going to really get credit for anything that you're doing when you're working at that level in policy. The credit's going to go to all of the people who are making the speeches and running for elections. So, you know, my name, you'll have to take my word for it that I participated in a lot of this work. So after having been at the Science and Innovation Network for, I think, 3 years, I had risen to a position that I wouldn't be able to go any higher. So my promotion within that organization was essentially stopped unless I became a UK citizen, I think. And these were also positions, as Patricia will, you know, potentially have told you, that you're in it until you're recruited out of it. And so one of the places I had been keeping my eye on, just as a place that I would love to work, was Cold Spring Harbor Laboratory, which, if you haven't heard of it, it's a research institution on Long Island, has a really long history of in the biosciences, in genetics, some of it not great, but we, you know, still talk about it. We don't try to hide the fact that part of the institution initially started out as the eugenics office in the US, and sort of what are the lessons we can learn from those terrible things. We also were led for a long time, the institution was led by Jim Watson, who is not a great person, has made contributions to science, but as a human, not so great. But it, you know, despite all of that, I still had been keeping my eye on it. And so at some point, a position arose. There was a posting for the position as director of the Banbury Center. I had not heard of the Banbury Center. It was sort of this not quite secret, but not very well known, almost like a science think tank at Cold Spring Harbor Laboratory. But what was interesting was, in the description of what Banbury did, it was very similar to the work that I was doing in the Science and Innovation Network. It was bringing together lots of different types of people to connect and to help progress science or something related. And it also didn't have the overlay of all of the politics that were in government. So you kind of removed, you know, at least one set of handcuffs that allowed you to do a little bit more. And so that's where I am now. And what we do is we convene closed small meetings, about maybe 30 people. With COVID, we've probably reduced those numbers just out of an abundance of caution. But they come together over about 3 days around a specific issue, and try to solve the world's problems. They only have 3 days to do it. So it's a lot of times we're stimulating new ideas, new policies, new discussions, new connections, new fields. One of the things we're very proud of is if you've heard of the Innocence Project, that organization started at the Banbury Center, started when some defense attorneys met some scientists at Banbury and had the idea to start it. The Human Genome Project, in the initial starting of that project, so the DOE and the NIH came to Banbury to develop the strategy for the project. And more recently, a lot of, I think, important work that we're only beginning to see the impacts of. And I use this particular meeting. So we had this paper produced as a result of the meeting, but I think it's so important right now about people trusting science. So that's one that we're particularly proud of. But also, I don't know if anyone recognizes this guy who happened to be at Banbury in 2019 for a meeting on cancer immunotherapies. And then a year later was developing the first COVID vaccine. So that's Leshan. And so, you know, we like to say we have people come to the center before they win Nobel Prizes or before they help the world get over pandemics. And so I think I can end there.
Thanks. Thanks, Rebecca. That was really great. And, you know, something that I talk to the fellows about is that whatever expertise you come into science diplomacy having, you kind of throw it out the window. You know, I had a background in public health, and then I was the oceans lead. So, you know, whatever, you know, if you want to focus on a specific science, you know, science diplomacy might not be for you because you kind of become a jack of all trades, master of none. And, you know, you kind of cover a wide range of topics. So thanks for your presentation. And then lastly, we have Tazreen from the Netherlands Innovation Network. So I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks, Patricia, and thanks for having me. So I actually had a quite different path to science diplomacy than my co-panelists. I actually came into this field by way of public diplomacy, so kind of hand in hand, but worlds away really when you're looking at it in practice. Taking it a little bit further back than that though, I kind of wanted to talk about like the influence of science in my life really briefly to kind of wrap, you'll see, it'll kind of make things full circle. But I basically grew up on university campuses. Both of my parents are academics. My mom has her PhD in higher ed, and my dad's an organic chemist by trade. So it was always sort of assumed that I would do something really sciencey growing up, and I probably shouldn't say this lest I get him into trouble, but when he was doing his postdoc, he would take me to his lab, and some of my core childhood memories were actually playing pretend scientist with whatever beakers and pipettes and dry ice he would supply to me. So it came as a little bit of a shock to them when I got to college and I announced that I was pursuing international relations instead of anything sciencey. But to me, it was kind of a no-brainer. Despite my interest in biology, I had been thinking about majoring in bio for a little bit. I circled right back around to international relations because I'm mostly an idealist by nature. I care very, very deeply about global problems, specifically the promotion of human welfare and economic growth, and developing policy around that respects human rights, as well as ecological constraints of the world. And to me, it really seemed like IR was the best way to do that. So I ended up majoring in poli-sci with a concentration in international politics. And once I graduated, I moved to Boston to start grad school. And this time my studies were a focus on comparative studies in public administration, because I really wanted to kind of wrap my head around the implementation of public policy on a national level across a multitude of countries. But despite this, my interest in science really didn't dwindle. Instead, I pursued kind of an intersection of the two and ended up writing my master's thesis on climate change resilience policy in coastal Bangladesh. But what I think really kicked off my career in science diplomacy was I was really fortunate to have interned and then to later work at the British Consulate-General here in Boston during my last year of grad school. I think looking back, it's actually pretty safe to say that that internship did catapult me into science diplomacy. My first interaction with it was there, and it was during World Antimicrobial Awareness Week, and kind of working a little bit on a comms campaign for that was really cool, because it had made me really frame diplomacy in a different way. Before, I had really thought of it as and understood it to be very mired in business, not really science and innovation, but as well as foreign relations and policy, obviously. So working on that campaign was really cool. And being a public affairs intern, I had actually categorized that campaign as solely science communications as opposed to science diplomacy, and kind of just left it at that. But while I was there, I quickly learned that a major driving force of IR is the economic development side of things, which seems really obvious in hindsight, but as a student, it was less clear to me. So I used that as a jump off point, and I strove to diversify my work experience. Later, I moved to Scottish Development International, accepted a role there. SDI is the international arm of the Government of Scotland's enterprise agencies, and I worked on their trade team with a focus on technology. One of the major advantages of working with Scotland was that I was able to support a multiple different field specialists, trade specialists in different regions and across different subsectors in technology. My work was really broad, and I really, really loved that. One day we were providing companies market insights, for example, to the US ophthalmological market. And then the next day we were kind of helping a robotics bird company set up shop in Canada. I stayed at SDI for a couple years, and so throughout the course of the pandemic, actually. And now I'm working for the Netherlands Innovation Network as their innovation officer. The Netherlands Innovation Network is the science and tech arm of the Dutch government's Ministry of Economic Affairs and Climate Policy. And my day-to-day is really just helping Dutch innovators form collaborative partnerships in government, industry, academia, and R&D here in New England. It's very similar to UK's Science and Innovation Network. We do a lot of similar programming, but of course, just for the Netherlands as opposed to the UK. So yeah, I think I will end it there and hand it back to Patricia.
Thanks so much, Tazreen. You know, I wanted to have different career pathways to show everyone that, you know, you don't have to be a PhD scientist to come in and work for, you don't work in the science diplomacy space. I myself do not have a PhD. I have a master's in public health. And I had a very circuitous route into the field as well. So, you know, it's good to hear from different perspectives. So I have a few questions that I'm going to ask the three panelists, and then after that, I'll open it up to the audience for questions. So my first question would be, what kind of skills do you think are important for a career in this field?
Would you like us to go in order, or how would you?
Whatever you want, just jump in and say whatever you think about this.
Thank you. I mean, I'll start, and please, you know, what I have learned is the capacity to listen, really working with communities, working with other governments, listening to their perspective. And the other strengths are flexibility, to be able to adapt, to create that partnership, to bring their resources, expertise, whatever, to the table. We're stronger together. The other is a creativity to see the possibilities. So I find that when I'm having conversations with people, such as here at the Congress, I'm able to thread sort of mentally between the needs or interests of one organization and another, and then to make that happen. So are these scientific skills? Maybe not so much. I think more on the kind of emotional intelligence spectrum, and on sort of pattern matching and things like this. But that's not to say it can't be part of a scientific career in general, especially as we advance transdisciplinary approaches. So I think that transdisciplinary scientists can be science diplomats in their own right, by, you know, connecting and moving science to action by, one-on-one collaborations that recognize the, sort of the indigenization that's required for sustainability. It's really going to happen at the local level and connect with the global. And that is something that we can advocate as science diplomacy specialists. So thanks.
All right, I guess I'll jump in because I want to build off a couple of things that Erica mentioned. I think hand in hand with listening is, a part of communication. And I think if you're good at communication, that comes with thinking about who your audience is or who you're communicating with, thinking about their motivations, their goals, their needs, and then getting back to you, what is your goal? What is your need for that relationship? So if you're a good communicator, I think that can really take you far. And then the other thing, I think it's kind of a strange balance of irrational confidence and being able to lose your ego, because sometimes you just need to jump in and get something done. There were times when I'm sure Patricia's heard this story, but we would have somebody very senior visiting and you were briefing them on their next meeting. And then in the next moment, they handed you something they needed dry cleaned, and you just sort of have to take it, keep things moving, make sure they're ready for their next meeting and go for it. But then to also have the irrational confidence to walk into a room with a lot of experts and sort of, whether you feel it or not, and whether you are or not, be next to them and have something to contribute and don't shy away in the corner.
Yeah, I'll use that as a jump off point, actually. Sorry, there was something in the background, but on the other hand of that, the ability to really quickly pick up proficiency in a lot of subjects that you really don't have any sort of background or grounding in order to give them valued input while facilitating collaborations or partnerships is really, really important, I found. And it's something that I tend to do the most, I think, given that I don't have that science background.
Great. I loved all of your answers. I totally agree with all of them. Communication, the ability to listen, the ability to thread together, what someone else wants with what your organization or government wants, looking for those gaps and opportunities. And then, like Tazreen said, like being, having proficiencies in a lot of different, sectors of science. And I really loved Rebecca's irrational confidence because it's so true. Yeah, you're sitting amongst, these experts in microbiology or something, and you have to not pretend, but act like you have something valuable to add to the discussion. So I totally understand that feeling. So then one of the next questions I will ask is, what do you wish that you knew in your early career about this field? If you were just starting out, like you're still getting your PhD, or you're still in undergrad or graduate school.
So I'll go first if that's okay. I kind of wish I knew it existed. It would have made the diplomacy pitch to my scientist dad much easier. But in all honesty, I wish I would have understood the impact science diplomacy has, not just on international relations as a discipline, but also in the role that it has in the collaboration in solving all of the world's greatest issues, because no single country is solving broad problems like sweeping climate change or things like that by themselves. It affects us all, and we all need to be at the table in order to solve these problems. So I really wish I knew that the impact that it has.
So I guess if we're going in reverse order, I also want to steal Tazreen's. I also wish I had known about it earlier. I think I probably wouldn't, if I would have still done a PhD, if I had known about it earlier, that's questionable. I think I would have definitely done my PhD in something different, because if you can imagine all of the, especially the biosciences, the one that's least relevant to policy is probably neuroendocrinology. I wish I had done something like infectious disease, or, something that had a little bit more policy relevance. So yeah, I'll echo that. Thinking about it earlier and maybe gaining some interest or some skills earlier on.
Thanks so much. For me, I was always trying to push boundaries. So even in my PhD, I was trying to make groups work together, and I just didn't know that that was a diplomatic process. That's just where my interest lies. The idea of being a boundary spanner, that there's so many more opportunities than just going into academia, and really hoping that the respect level and the career advancement could be equalized, whether you become an academic or you use those skills for other purposes. So it's something I'm still working on. But to be totally honest, I wish something I would have learned, and many scientists would have learned, is the process of science. So it's not just about, the scientific method and all of this, but where your funding comes from and why it's even there, and how it can be translated into something that has societal impact or has a use. I note that many scientists that I work with that are in advisory positions to government still don't understand how that government works. Even the local government, how they make science-based decisions. What are the draws on that? I think it's something we should just know as a people, better understand how our governments work.
Great, thank you. I totally agree with all of your statements. So I did see a few people started asking questions in the chat. So maybe I'll start with the first question. It is directed at Dr. Leshan, but you could kind of augment it to fit your career path and background as well. So one of the questions is, Dr. Leshan, I feel identified with your career path. How do you think your PhD training in biomedical sciences has impacted your current job?
So I think a lot of different ways. So I don't think I would have my current job if I hadn't gotten PhD training in the biosciences, because that's what they were looking for as the head of Banbury. But that's doesn't really talk to the skills and what are the lessons and the things that I gained. I think one of the biggest things that at least I took away from my PhD training and postdoc was a lot of resilience, because as I think with a lot of scientists, the majority of my experiments and my projects failed miserably. And you sort of had to know when to move on, know when it wasn't worth working on anymore, and you just needed to pivot. Okay, that didn't work, what's next? I think the communication training, both writing and presenting, that was something that I'm always so grateful that I have from that training. And then the just critical analysis, being able to pick up something, whether it's a paper or whether it's an experiment that's a challenge for you, or whether it's a policy issue, and be able to look at it from different angles and say, okay, what are some potential solutions? What's my plan? How am I going to approach this? And who are the people I need on my team with me? And that it is a team, that you collaborate quite a bit.
And I know it was directed at Rebecca, but does anyone else have, thoughts about how your training in undergrad or graduate school impacted your current position?
So I think for me, if I were to augment my experiences to the question, obviously, really comes from how my background in public diplomacy really set me up to be able to quickly understand and identify how actors play with each other, kind of on an international stage. That's been really helpful in my work in facilitating partnerships and collaborations, because that's what I was really trained to do in theory from both my political science undergrad degree as well as for my master's in public administration as well, because that's what you learn. That is what you learn in the field. And then obviously in public diplomacy, you're constantly circling back and figuring out your foreign policy in relation to who you're dealing with, whether that's at the regional level, at the state level, at the national level, international level, what have you. So yeah.
And I'll just pick up there and say, I think we're really in a time of transition. You know, having a PhD, I'm not going to lie, does open a lot of doors. It also closes other doors. I know looking into things such as the Foreign Service to be a science officer within the US State Department, they really didn't want a PhD. They wanted someone that they could mold in their own thought process and model. And so having an undergraduate degree in political sciences or even a master's was much more attractive to them, because this is a process of molding, and a PhD is a molding process. What I can say now, as we're really embracing other ways of knowing and learning, especially with diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice, is that the PhD gives you a baseline with which to interpret the change that can take place, the institutional change of which science diplomacy is going to be a very strong part of. So I think this is an exciting time where there are many pathways forward, and the PhD is not the only one.
I'll also say, just building on what Erica said, the bad part about the PhD training, and I'm sure any training in sciences, is that you're thinking in logical sense, what's the next logical experiment, or what's the best next experiment or project? And you kind of have to throw that all out the window when you're trying to do policy, because it's not always about, well, this is the best science, this is what we should do, or this is what we should fund. It's really about a million other motivations coming in, some of them really, really stupid. And you just think, this is insane. Why can't we just do what's logical? And you kind of have to push that down. I almost, wish I didn't have that thinking.
I totally agree. Sometimes you get priorities in science from government that are based off, ministerial, random ideas. So it's not really grounded in science all the time. So you have to learn how to deal with that. One of the next questions we have from Jonathan, how do you manage interests between coordinating two or more groups, especially when there's a power dynamic?
I can jump in on that one. So a really key training to try to have in your wheelhouse is multi-stakeholder engagement. And there's a lot of different sources for that, but I believe the Foreign Service Institute is one of those sources. And this is a tool to have whether you're going to stay in science or you're going to pursue science diplomacy, and really understanding the power dynamic, the agency, the way to engage in a safe and respectful way multiple stakeholders for an activity. And so, ensuring that the outcome does no harm to the extent possible. And that, you're striving towards a common goal. So it is something that we provide, and it's something that a number of organizations are starting to advocate for, recognizing it's not something you're going to learn in a typical science career.
So I can add also, just from my experience, we had a couple of meetings recently where we really were bringing together two opposing groups. One of them was actually ocean related. So we were looking at deep sea mining, and we had people coming together who were, studied the deep sea and really wanted it protected. And then we had people representing some of the mining interests in mining companies. And another was about consumer genealogy. So should what you've submitted to 23andMe or Ancestry.com, how should you have control over how that's used by criminal justice, by law enforcement? And so we wanted to make sure everyone was represented, everyone had a voice in some of the decisions we were going to make and the discussions we had. It was, in those cases, it was the important thing was getting people into the same room to talk to each other, not writing back and forth as faceless representations of an opposing view. It was having rules of play, so that everyone was going to respect each other, that there was going to be a specific scope, that we were going to stay away from some of the things that might cause irreparable damage to a discussion. It was having strong facilitation. And then it was making sure that the people who were invited and who were there to talk were willing to listen and were willing to talk to the other side, and whether or not they were willing to compromise on some of their beliefs wasn't as important as just the ability to get in and engage. And in all those cases, we had people, once you get two people in the same room in a small group, they're not going to, start fist fighting. They're going to eventually just talk to each other. You have a goal that everyone's going to hopefully win from. And so that's been the most useful, and thank God that's what we do here.
I actually don't have anything to add to that. I think Rebecca summed it up very, very well.
So the next question is for Rebecca and Tazreen. So does nationality or citizenship affect your eligibility for certain opportunities as American citizens? Working for the UK government and Netherlands Innovation Network, do you get interesting perspectives as a foreign citizen, and do you face any challenges because of that?
So what's actually really cool about working as an American for a foreign country is that they really do rely on you to sort of get the culture and the lay of the land, so to speak, and be that kind of cultural translator for them. So yes and no, you definitely get a lot of, you're definitely able to share a lot of your perspectives and a lot of your background with the government that you work for. It's been really fun working for the Dutch because they are every bit as straightforward as they say they are. But there are definite obstacles sometimes to, I guess, in advancement. I think we kind of spoke to this a little bit earlier, very briefly in the conversation, but you kind of can work up to a point as a regional employee before you can no longer advance within the network. And I don't know whether that's true for all foreign governments, but I found that to be the case for both the UK as well as for the Netherlands.
I'll add the biggest drawback for me was that I would be working with someone and communicating with them, and then I would turn up for the event or for the meeting, and you would see the look of disappointment on their face when I didn't talk with a British accent. And so I would always try and email to warn people ahead. Listen, I'm from Michigan. I'm coming not even with a pretty American accent. I'm coming straight from the Midwest. So prepare yourself. I think that already having talked about the opportunities for advancement, I think if you go outside of government or if you're recruited away from government, you could still work potentially on behalf of the interests or influencing foreign government policy. But within government, you might be limited. One thing that I found, and one of the reasons I left, and I'm glad that I left, is that I struggled with trying to work to improve UK policy. I mean, ultimately it was trying to improve global policy, but I was seeing so many things I would like to influence in the US, and that wasn't my job. And so I also didn't necessarily want to work for the US because actually at the time I left, the UK government was November 2016. And I don't know if anyone traumatically remembers what happened around that time, but I didn't really want to work for the US government at that point. But I found that working for an organization that can have influence on policy, but is coming from the outside, has been much more flexible, especially to citizenship needs, but also to kind of being able to have the ability to sometimes be not political, or even to be political and not have to just use the lines of the government, to be able to have really your own opinion, but to still have that influence and feel like you're having impact. Not quite sure if that was the exact question that was asked, but those were the things that came to mind.
Yeah, and I would just add, in addition to the Brits and the Netherlands and Scotland, a few other foreign governments that will hire locally engaged staff, which are, as Tazreen mentioned, kind of your local experts and like cultural translators on the ground. The German consulate will hire you if you speak German. The French consulate will hire you if we speak French. The Swiss Next in Boston and San Francisco, they hire local employees as well. And then the embassies in DC, there's a bunch of those that hire. The Canadians hire local employees. The Australians hire local employees.
New Zealand
hires local employees. And I'm thinking, I can't remember anybody else off the top of my head. Actually, it's Japanese. If you speak Japanese, they hire local employees as well. But yeah, there's kind of a language requirement for a lot of these, unless you work for, a Commonwealth country, basically. And Rebecca, I totally understand the disappointment that you receive if you show up somewhere and they're expecting, a Dutch person or a British person, and you're like, no, I'm from Pennsylvania, and they're very disappointed. Like, oh man, I really wish I was going to meet with a British person today. So that's something that you have to work out if you end up working for a foreign government as well. One of the other questions, are there things that you'd recommend graduate students in the biosciences to do to prepare for a career in science diplomacy? But maybe let's broaden that. And are there things that you'd recommend any graduate students could do now to launch their career in this field?
I think since I've been closest to this the most recently, I would just say don't limit your interests. So if you're a graduate student and you're looking for an internship, let's say you are a biomedical sciences graduate student, I would say try to maybe get a public policy internship, or vice versa. If you're a public policy student, then try to get a science type of internship, because I know, for example, the British Consulate-General, they will oftentimes have multiple different internship positions open in multiple different departments. So whether that's like politics, press, and public affairs, or whether that's in science and innovation, or whether that's in DIT, which is the Department for International Trade, just really try to diversify your work experience and do something that isn't directly related to what you're studying, but still has sort of that kind of transdisciplinary aspect for whatever your goals are that you want to accomplish.
So I'll add, I wrote down 3 things. One of those is going back to something Erica said early on, which was learn about government processes, learn about government, learn about whether or not you want to be in science policy. I always recommend to scientists know how science policy is going to affect you. So that could be as simple as I use a website called GovTrack, and I've put in keywords. So it will send me updates to my email when there's new legislation related to an area of science that I'm interested in, who local representatives are, what's their voting record. One of the things you can do without having to go really formal, if you want to get some experience just to put on your resume, is to do something like start a blog. Go sign up for a Medium account and just start writing about the work that you're doing or a specific issue. Practice your writing and get it out there, even if only, maybe your grandmother is reading it. It's out there so that when you go to apply for something, you have a record of yourself writing about science issues. And the last thing I would say is network. So it's a little bit harder right now, but it's also maybe a little bit easier because there are a lot of virtual things that are open across the country. Go to things, talk to people, and when you meet them, listen to them, let them tell you their story. People like to talk about themselves. That's why I'm here. And get them to talk about their career path. And if there's something in their history that is of interest to you, ask them for a connection. Oh, you used to work for the Gates Foundation. I've always wanted to work there. Is there any chance you still know someone who works there? Can you connect me? And when I was starting to build my interests outside of academic science research, that's what I was doing. Every person I met, I would get a new connection and I would sort of hop around and talk to people. And eventually that helped me gain other skills and just refine what I wanted to do.
And leveraging off of what both Tazreen and Rebecca just said, writing for science diplomacy for any policymaker is very different from scientific writing. If you can't get your point across in the first sentence or two, they don't have the attention span to go through it. We were often consulted by congressional aides and others in the federal government about issues that were coming up for vote. And they would kind of scan the leading sentence in the email to decide whether they would even open it or not. Because when you're getting 1,000 emails a day, it's a triage situation. You also have to realize that turnover within the government is very high. So while you might have a congressional representative who's very interested in, carbon emissions for their district, it's not going to be them that are in contact with you, but it's going to be an aide. And these are usually very young people that are sons and daughters of, donors. And they bring them in and they burn them out within 3 months and then they send them home. And so every 3 months, you might be getting the same phone call from the same district's office asking for a white paper or a position paper about a particular issue. And just being able to, understand that this is the process and, how you can leverage to the greatest effect. What is your role in this machine that is creating this? So, beyond that, the concept of being able to, mine as much as possible your experience. So, as an oceanographer, I was working in territorial waters, which involves applying to the State Department for access. And just understanding, that give and take scientifically that allows science to take place. And what are all of the caveats and what is the language involved to maintain that diplomatic relationship?
Thank you. And I'm cognizant of time, and I know it's very late for you, Erica. So maybe this will be the last question. So similar to one of the previous questions, are there opportunities to pursue these types of career that are geographically based in other countries as a US citizen, either for the US government or for other organizations? And I know, Erica, you've worked abroad in the past. Maybe you could share a little bit about your experience with the Belknap form is based overseas, correct?
Yes, I was based in Paris in Uruguay, but there are so many jobs out there. So it really depends the sector that you're looking in. Of course, there's private sector, NGO, nonprofit, and government positions that you can pursue. Personally, I appreciate the flexibility and the quick response time of an NGO. It's much less hampered bureaucratically, and it has a flexibility to really enable meaningful partnerships. But I think the key there is, to continue to network. I think that's what's come across here, to be open to those ideas, to potentially, target, an issue or a country that you want to be involved in, and make yourself indispensable, make yourself the connector, network people together, and they see that value add that you bring, and they'll invite you. And it's incredible when those doors do open, the types of support that you can get. So I was actually an Uruguayan diplomat while I was overseas, and that opened so many channels for me. So I be that primary piece for discussion. Thanks.
Great. Anyone else have an answer to that question?
I was finding I wanted to work in the or be based in the US, and everything I wanted to apply for that sounded really interesting was based overseas. So I can emphasize Erica's point that there's a lot of opportunities out there if you do want to work overseas.
Yeah, and I would say, just some organizations off the top of my head, like the Belmont Forum that Erica mentioned. Another organization is the International Science Council. They're based in Paris. There could be another organization to look at. INGSA, the International Network of Government Science Advisors. They have like a broad network. They have some people in New Zealand, but then I know that they had people in Asia as well. And Erica mentioned YASA in Austria. That's another organization that everyone can look into. And then I run a Twitter account. I'm going to put it in this chat, called SciDip Jobs, and I try to post jobs that people either send me or that I've come across. And so anything that is tangentially related to science diplomacy will be up there. And also, these foreign government type of roles as well, I often post them. So for example, Swissnex is hiring an innovation advisor for the New York office right now, if anyone's looking for a role in New York. And then I'm pretty sure that the UK Science and Innovation Network is currently still hiring the head of science and innovation for their Los Angeles office. And as someone who is based in Los Angeles previously with the UK Science Innovation Network, I would highly recommend that role. It's very exciting. And you get to work on a lot of different cool sectors of science, like agri-tech and space tech and climate tech, that kind of stuff. So check out those types of jobs. And there's so many different organizations out there. It's hard to list all of them, but that's a good start at least. And something that all the panelists mentioned is continue to build your network. That's very important. And you might find a new organization that you didn't know about before that you could potentially work for in the future as well. Any last remarks or thoughts
I
from?
wanted to add to your point about the Swissnex and the opportunities in Los Angeles for the UK. I think one of the things that I think that I did right, or at least right for me, was, and it wasn't intentional, but going from academic research into working for the UK Science and Innovation Network, because that organization is quite, I mean, it's large, but you're based in small locations. So you end up doing a lot of things, getting a lot of opportunities that you wouldn't if you just went to work for, say, the US government, and you were kind of working for the DOE on a very specific project. So if you're not quite sure what you're interested in, or you want to get a lot of experience really quickly, going to a place like a foreign embassy or consulate or station in the US can get you that. You'll also be doing a lot of things that you probably didn't want to do, but throughout that, you'll get so much experience, so many connections, and you'll kind of figure out what your interest is in.
Any last thoughts, Tazreen?
Yeah, just kind of on what Rebecca said. I will be really, like, if anyone asks me, I'll be really upfront, but I actually got like my current role through these networks. I like to joke around sometimes that, and it's not even just myself, pretty much anyone in this space in Boston makes the same joke, but it's kind of, everyone knows everyone, everyone is friends with everyone, and there's a lot of cross-pollination between teams. For example, in Boston, I've worked for the UK, the Scotland, and now the Netherlands. So kind of just reiterating the importance of networking, that can really, really get you through the door.
And that's how I got my job with the Quebec government. I was working for the UK government as a science attaché, and the Quebec government was looking for a science attaché. And so I went to the Science and Technology Diplomatic Circle events, and then I met my future at the time boss, and that's kind of how I ended up with the job. Yes, and FRQ in Quebec does work globally. So the Fonds de Recherche du Québec, but they actually fund science, sorry, I'm thinking in French, scientists in residence abroad, but you have to be a Quebecois citizen to get one of these positions. But they have like awesome positions, like they post you in NASA, they're starting one in UNESCO. San Francisco is getting a scientifique en résidence. So yeah, you get really cool postings. So if anybody here is from Quebec, doubtful, but if there is, there's a lot of opportunities, and you can feel free to email me. And I'm just going to put my email in the chat for everyone really quick. So again, I'm Patricia Gruber. I'm running the SciDeal programs. And so if you would like to hear more about SciDeal or anything science diplomacy related with the National Science Policy Network, please feel free to reach out to me. And this is going to be recorded. So if you came in late and you didn't get to the beginning, this will be posted on YouTube within the next week or so. So thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much to our panelists for their time. I look forward to connecting with you again in the future.
Thank you.
Thanks again for having us.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening. Bye.